You're listening to the MLS Fantasy Insider, bringing you weekly tips, tricks, and advice for the official MLS Fantasy game.
Oh, is Pasta in for a game?
Hello, everyone. How are you doing tonight? Welcome, everyone. We are waiting for Ashley to join us. She is slightly delayed tonight. Not too long, though. That's what she said, which is okay as we wait for people to come and join. The social has just gone out on Twitter. So if you would be so kind as to share that, greatly appreciated as always. And I will be putting it out here on Discord in just a second through the announcements. Where'd they go? There they are. Paste that, copy here. So here we are. We have come the long journey to the final fantasy round of the season. Look at that. Here we are, everybody. Let's see here who we've got with us. What's going on? Hey, Fizz. Hey, Gene. Hey, William. Hey, Eric. Yeah, final one. Please adjust the camera. What's wrong with the camera?
It needs Ashley. You've got it set up for 3.
Oh, I just changed it. Oh, no. I'm sorry. I switched it and forgot to fade it. There we go, William. How does that look now? Or Eric, how does that look now, Eric? Well, or whenever it catches up. There we go. That should catch it. Sorry about that. I've got the studio mode set up for OBS, and I forgot to fade in with the prep transition. So, my bad. My bad right there. Let's see here. Here we go. Hey, Jimmy. Happy last week of the pod. So technically not the last week of the pod. We will be doing one more final episode, our season recap. We're going to take 1 week off, and then we'll come back and do our recap episode. We'll bring back a couple of guests, have one of our patrons on as well. There'll be a survey that comes out next week to try to get some of those answers right there. Announce the official winners of the Pro Rel and all that jazz, so I have time to go back and remember the rules that I put into place. That next time I'm going to have like stickied on my monitor right here, so I don't forget halfway through the season. What's up, Cam? And hello, Jojo, as well. But yeah, so the final pod for tips, but we will have one more podcast left. So, and if I have to do anything else with like a special drop to like officially highlight winners or something, if I haven't gotten that added up, then we'll do that as well. Fun show halfway through the off season by any chance? I mean, maybe we could probably do a fun show halfway through the off season. We could try to do. I'll get feedback is always welcome, Ron. If people have feedback they want to send, we could try to do something around the Super Draft, or we could try to do 1 or 2 preview episodes this year during the off season of just some of the transfers that we like, things that are jumping out. I know we'll have Seattle, well, not Seattle, St. Louis joining us next year. Is that right?
Yep, St. Louis is joining, and Nashville is going back east.
Mm-hmm. So we'll have some a World Cup show. I mean, maybe. I know people in Discord will likely have a World Cup fantasy going. We've not covered that, but I mean, I'm game to throw some random podcasts up here every now and then, or if not a podcast, maybe we do a live hangout, that kind of thing. We can do a live hangout episode. It's not. We can do it on YouTube, but not have it actually pushed to SoundCloud or anything like that. So yeah, I'm up for those sorts of things. If people want to hit me up on Discord or Twitter and see what we can get organized. Have to clear it with Mrs. MLS Fantasy Boss. Make sure she is okay with splitting some of that time. But yeah, so let's see here. What are we looking at? 13 people. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. Again, the Twitter link has already gone out for both the Fantasy Boss account and the MLSFI account. So if you don't care to share those for this last episode, might as well get all that goodness out there. So if people want to just join and hang, share your final successes or your final defeats for this last round before we go into the actual end of the season. So I guess there'll be one more round for successes and failures, but this is the last one. We're really going to focus on that because we won't really hit on that for our recap episode. Hey, Shannon, what's going on? Nice to see you. Glad you can join as usual. Let's see, how long have we given Ashley right now? She said she'd be about 10 minutes late. We've given her like 5 minutes. So, I mean, Blayne's got a really special intro that I kind of want Ashley to hear. So that's why we're doing a lot of vamping right now. I think
you can't have the last one without Ashley.
We can't. No,
we
really can't.
I know it's not the last show, but I mean the last major important one for the season.
Absolutely. We'll have Ashley in here. It's that weird time when she's like back at work doing stuff for, I guess Seattle just starts school later in the year than others, or I'm at a university, so we're just on our own schedule. I don't know what happens anymore with the real world. That's how that goes.
Reid, did you really go Pulse Camp Fantas and Agata this week?
I do all kinds of crazy things. I went Linen, I went Waterman, and Fantas.
Wow.
So I got 26 points right there. I did also go Agata, but I also went with Vasquez and Brenner and Acosta with my captain. And Pulse Camp, yeah, in the back, yeah. Mukhtar didn't do me well. Puish, Drusi, Gazdag failed me. So, I mean, I got 100 points. And most of I either like tied head-to-heads or just missed them by like a small, like 4, I think might have been. 4 or 6 might have been the biggest head-to-head that I lost. So, I mean, I guess I should play like this all the time because I've gotten to the point in the season where I'm kind of like, I'm not really going to hit the overall target that I wanted. I didn't make the Champions League. I'm just going to do fun stuff and just for the heck of it. And then I've just like done really well these last few rounds. So, I mean, it is what it is. Ashley just embarrassed that she lost to me in the Experts League. I mean, I don't think anyone should be embarrassed that they lost to you in the Experts League, Cameron. The Experts League is rough stuff. Rough stuff. Jojo, I'm sure Ashley would love to weigh in on that. So we'll let her do that at some point in the show. But Ashley is here, so this is what we were vamping for. She said she'd be like 10 minutes late. She is exactly 10 minutes late. Punctual in her tardiness is fantastic.
Always.
So no, Ashley, we decided that we could not start the final episode without you, and it just seemed right for here. In fact, I even waited
to record.
Recording in progress.
I did. I waited.
You know my love language.
What's my love language? Recording started.
Recording started.
There we go. There. And then just to make that quick, just reiterate again for those who hear with us now. I'll of course mention this during the show, but this is our final preview episode, but not our final podcast. We will be doing one more season wrap up at the very end, and probably a couple weeks. Take a week off to get some stuff together. The only thing that would delay that is if we can't get Skylar on in 2 weeks. Because I think it's really important to have him at least be on for a portion of the show. If we couldn't do that, we might pre-record it and drop it later. But that's one thing I do feel is important is to get Skylar involved in that last episode in some way. So that's the only reason it might be delayed. More will come out, but my plan right now is to take about a week off and then wrap it up so that people can just enjoy the playoffs and the World Cup. Yeah, the World Cup. So, okay, let's see here. We have got our rundown. We have got all of our hosts and co-hosts. We've got various things plugged into various places. And we're recording, most importantly. And we are now going to switch the scenes now that everybody is here, except we'll have to change the old. So everything got updated with OBS, and it's all like a little bigger, kind of mackier, shinier to it.
You sound like you love it.
Yeah, my opinions of Apple are not high. They will likely never be a sponsor of the show, so no problems there. Let's see, I already had a Blayne. Now give me another.
I mean, with Apple TV getting MLS, we may have them as a sponsor.
I mean, the most I can give you for that is I'll just stop saying bad things about them. But though, I mean, to be fair, I don't badmouth Apple on this show very often, very rarely. So, okay, there we go. Fix the names. Get Ashley sorted right there. Fade again. There we go. That's ordered. All right, there we go. That should be good for the screen. Everyone sees everything well. Fantastic. There's an echo. Oh, that's me. Headphones. Gosh, scrub. Here I was just like having fun with everybody and not plugging in my headphones. Making an echo. How's that sound? Have we lost the echo?
Mm-hmm.
Nano, all the echo. My bad. Yep.
Yeah, I guess Ashley and I have to talk to see if there's an echo.
Yeah.
All right, fantastic. Well, we are here. We are ready to go. Thank you for those of you who stuck with us during our vamp, our little final behind the scenes chit chat, but we are going to get started right now. Hello and welcome to the MLS Fantasy Insider, our preview of round 29, the final round of the 2022 MLS Fantasy season. This episode is brought to you by...
Hold on, Reid.
Oh.
I'm taking this one over. This episode is brought to you by the end of an era. Seattle is missing the playoffs for the first time, and I'm going to celebrate just like everybody celebrated when Sporting missed a few years back.
Oh, no. Actually, brought to you by the amazing Patreon supporters of the MLS Fantasy Insider podcast. It's without you guys that at least two of us couldn't keep this podcast going. I don't know if there'll be three by the end of the show. I'm your host, Reid Connolly from MLSFantasyBoss.com, and tonight I'm joined by my partners in fantasy, Blayne Riffle and Ashley Savage. How are you all doing tonight?
I'm doing great.
Ashley?
Yeah, I mean, I'm doing better than Blayne, so, made it enough times, got some silverware this year. My MVP captain isn't retiring, and, I'm sitting pretty.
Ouch. Too soon, not enough, too hot. I don't know.
I'd expect nothing less.
Expecting nothing less. It's the love. It's the love of the playful banter that happens.
Banter.
That's it. That's all this right there.
Is it time to say, like, Cascadia invented crashing out of the playoffs like this?
I mean, no, because they've made it every year for the last 6, so...
Yeah, so now it's time for Seattle to claim that they've invented this, too.
Sure. Well, we only invent good things. You wouldn't know anything about that.
I mean, there's a lot of new teams in the East.
Someone else... New England crashing out. Atlanta. New England was the best pointed team in the history of MLS. No playoffs. So I think... it's a streak, and it's definitely fun to laugh at when you're not a Sounders fan. But I mean, other people are choking just as bad, if not worse. So
it's true.
I'm okay with it. It's a good year to start.
It's not all bad. I mean, this is a weird year. New England finished first in the East, and they're out. But then you got Colorado, Seattle, and Sporting finished 1, 2, 3 last year, and all three of them are eliminated before decision day. So it's just a crazy.
Cincinnati might make the playoffs. What world are we living in, you guys? I don't even know what to.
I'm glad the show's over before playoffs. I mean, I don't know if we could sit here with Reid having the only playoff team.
I mean, it would feel weird, but God, I hope it happens, because if we're 0 for 3 as a podcast, what are we doing, you guys?
These things just happen. I mean, there's only so many wooden spoons you can put up on your wall before you decide you need to make it something shiny.
You gotta try. We wouldn't know anything about that.
He would not know anything about that. But this is not the end of the season. There is still one more round. And we played a round last week, which seemed forever because it was this 2-week expansion craziness. So thanks for everyone who stuck with us during that strange. But how did everyone do last week? Chat, go ahead and put your results. And let's start with you all. Blayne.
Yeah, 86 last week. Not my best round for sure. I took a couple of gambles. I did take out my Seattle players. I kind of listened to chat on that. Yamar would have been better than what I had. Fry would have been better off the bench. Ended up with Blake and Wagner, which really hurt. I probably would have had Wagner either way, though. You just don't expect something like that. Gambled. I left a 5 on the bench and tried putting Shaq Moore in just because I thought Nashville had a chance. I was trying to make up some ground in some head-to-heads. So it was a gamble that cost me 2 points. But then Gazdag was my other big miss for the week. Don't feel too bad about Mukhtar. I think a lot of players had him. He was up there for one of those prime picks. I mean, taking a 3 hurts, but I feel like the vast majority of the top end players had him anyway, so that's a wash. But Gazdag getting a 1 was really rough.
0. He got a 0.
He's showing a 1 on mine right now.
Corrections. Well, Blayne, it's nice to see, though, that you and Gazdag have come full circle by the end of the season with letting you down.
Yeah.
Oh, Gazdag, sorry. You said Gazdag. I heard Wagner. Oh, my bad.
Yeah, Wagner and Blake both picked up 0s. That's what really hurt me this week. Everybody else was okay. I mean, Miazga, Callens, Acosta, Vasquez. Heel on the bench. I did throw him on the bench. I decided to gamble with that one. It was a disappointing week overall. My trust in Philly just really let me down. They're fighting for the Shield and blew it at the tail end.
Expect more. This is part of how this end of the season always works. Ashley, how did you do?
Because MLS.
Because MLS.
It's a big because MLS season, I think, for sure. Yeah, I had got a 94. I had some questionable choices. I talked about this in our group that I was a little under the weather Saturday morning, and I spent about 10 minutes trying to decide if I wanted to keep Carlos Heel on my team. Got into Discord, talked in Discord for a little bit, which isn't normally like me on a game day. Talked to a girlfriend of mine about it. Looked at my team so many times and didn't realize that I still had Brooks Lennon in my defense from the round before. He got a 6, so honestly I feel like that could have been worse. But I was just not there for the adjustments Saturday, just kind of dealing with just a head thing, but had to make some adjustments on the day, and I don't think I did my best. 94 isn't anything to be too upset about. It dropped me down a little bit in Champions League. I also had Mukhtar, which, like Blayne said, I think most people did. I didn't start any of my Seattle players, and I feel okay with that. I did have Callens, which was helpful. Puig and Heel pulling out 10s was good. I also started Insigne, which ended up to be not the best place on the field for him. But I'm at overall rank 55, Champions League 18. My goal for this year was to do top 100, and I'm sitting there right now. And my goal for Champions League was top 50. So there was a 2.5-hour stretch. I have to say it here so it lives on forever. There's a 2.5-hour stretch where I was number 1 in Champions League. And I just feel like if we'd stopped then, I would have been insufferable. So I'm really glad we didn't. But it was a really kind of crazy because it wasn't just like a mid-game thing. It was like games had happened, other things had ended, and it said it. So of course I screenshotted it. I will brag about it in my household forever. But just to get top 50 in Champions League will feel like a real win for me. So not my best round, but hopefully this final round I can at least hold steady or maybe move up a little bit.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. So for myself, I ended up with 100 points on the round, and I thought that was a pretty good score with some kind of random people in there. I think I had a pretty cookie cutter midfield there: Acosta, Mukhtar, Puig, Durusi, and Gazdag. I went double Cincinnati for my front line with Vasquez and Brenner, and I had Acosta as my captain. And then I had Fontas and Wagner on the bench, and I had them coming in with a keeper with an Otteru, and I got the 10 from Fontas, and I went with the SKC back line, and so I also had Polskamp as my defense, Waterman as another defender there with 10. I had Lennon as well, and then I left 8 on the bench with Tagada.
On purpose?
I did, yeah. I made that choice on purpose, so
that makes me feel better.
So I was okay with the 6.
No, me too. But yeah. I wasn't okay that he was there. I was surprised to see him.
No, I thought it was a decent shot there with
totally.
With the match,
he got an assist.
Yeah, I was
offensive bonus points against a bad New England team. The pick makes sense.
Yeah, I was really happy with my score, and I can see from the only thing that was bummed was I looked at my head-to-heads, and I don't know if I won any of them. I think I tied one and then lost the others by maybe 4 or 6 points. So I was like, yes, triple digits. What?
I think Blayne and I should give some credit where credit is due in our Experts Invitational to Cam and Donuts. The final 4 was Blayne and Donuts, myself, and Cam, and Donuts and Cam won out, as honestly they should have. They had such great seasons, so they'll play each other in the finals for that league, and just deserved. I would have loved if it was Blayne and me, obviously, because that would have just been hilarious and amazing. But yeah, kudos to those guys for pulling it out. I also just very quickly want to share with you guys the team of the week, just so I think we can all feel a little better about our chalk picks not hitting. Marie for San Jose and Shea Salinas, both of who cost less than Yamar combined, with 12 points. Zach McMath with 10 on that penalty save. Is Matt Marine, that one to me makes a little bit of sense. I thought SKC had a good clean sheet shout. Mabika for Inter Miami with 11 as well. Etienne Jr. with 12 from Columbus, which is, I don't think, anybody's first pick from that midfield. Lucho Acosta and Gald, I get 14 and 17 respectively. Gutierrez, a 5.0 midfielder from Chicago with 17. Rios, as we know, 4.9 for Charlotte on 23 points. And then Duran for Chicago, 5.6 million with 14 points. I mean, that's not a team you're picking.
That sounds like a team that hacked the system. There we go.
Yes, exactly.
There we go. No, huge congrats to that. Going over to chat. Some also fantastic scores here. Is it 111 for Fizz? That's awesome. 110 after corrections. Well, we're an after correction sort of crowd here, Fizz. So that's the score we have to look at. The Skylar's score. Everyone's got to give their Skylar's cut. So 96 for Gene, 91 for Williams, 71 for Eric. 93 for Black and Red. I mean, lots of 70s, 80s, and 90s. I mean, it was a rough round. Oh, saw 115. Cameron 115 for the week. That's why he did so well. So yeah, if you got triple digits, I mean, that was definitely big time right there. And this was a fun round for the crazy that it was. So it was a very MLS kind of round, I feel. But it's not left. We do still have one round left. Are there? And I'm okay with this being a short section right here in chat. Feel free to weigh in right now. But is there anything that you have for takeaways from takearoos from this week that can be applicable for this final round as we're going into the end of the season? Ashley.
I mean, I think, and I'm sure Blayne will say the same thing. I think just paying attention to who needs it, right? There's a couple of teams that are still in both conferences that are just on the bubble, and I expect those playmakers to show up. I expect Lucho Acosta, Brenner, Vasquez to show up at DC when they need it. I expect Zella Ryan, Cucho to show up because they're going to need, I think that I think there's going to be some good spoilers to be had. I think it's not, just neglecting the teams that didn't make playoffs maybe isn't the best path because as Blayne knows too well, the teams are going to want to spoil, right? But no, I mean, generally, I think the teams that are out, it's not that I want to fade them by any means, but just being aware that they might not play everybody or you might see some kids starting is just the general kind of takeaway for me. And, another thing to keep in mind that's not really something from this past week, but that does affect this week is when the games start, right? That decision day format makes it kind of tricky to pivot because everything starts at two different, the same time, but two different times.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, there wasn't much from this week that I would say completely factors into next week, except who's still alive and who isn't. And like Blayne and I also always comment on kind of who's hot and who isn't. Philadelphia is really kind of losing it for me, right? The last couple of weeks. It's just surprising because they had clawed their way back to be the Shield front runners and then have blown it with these Atlanta losses and this loss to Charlotte. So just kind of paying attention. Same Vancouver, big run of form lately. Just paying attention to who's in form and who needs it the most. I think is important going into this week.
Blayne.
Yeah, I'm in that same boat. It's I kind of wrote down the playoff letdown is real. I think Philly's 100% in that playoff letdown. Looking at the numbers, LAFC has 21 wins after the weekend. Philly has 18. If Philly did everything right, which they didn't, they would still be behind, tied on points, behind on wins as that first tiebreaker for the Shield. It's a long shot. You're seeing kinks get worked out here. It's just when teams are locked in and their positions are kind of stationary, you see some rotation. You see some guys let off the gas a little bit. It's what we see in MLS all the time. And decision day, I expect even more of that. I fully expect with LAFC to have the Shield locked up, to be clear in their positioning, to rotate heavily and wait for the playoffs.
Bale might start.
Yeah.
It's rotating, right?
Yeah. Protect the guys that are injury prone and things like that. And I see the same thing in the East. That's a dogfight. There's a couple of positional battles to be fought. Montreal and Philly are not decided at the 1-2, but they are going to finish 1-2 between them. But watch those live teams. Those live teams have everything to play for, and their opponents have every chance to play spoiler here. And right now, I just think I'd take this time to highlight Cincinnati, Orlando, Miami, Columbus, and Charlotte are all live with positional changes that can affect playoff standings.
Well, and I'll throw in Portland, Minnesota, RSL, Vancouver.
Yep, and then that's your Western Conference. Every one of those teams has something to play for. And it's going to be interesting. I don't know that we have any of those as head-to-heads, which is nice. No, RSL and Portland are going head-to-head.
Yes, you're right.
That is a definite must-win. So if you want guys that are going to play 100% and give everything they've got.
Minnesota, Vancouver also.
Minnesota, that one too? Oh my goodness. Okay, so the West is full live. I mean, I hadn't gotten to break that down, but that's huge.
Yep.
You're going to get to see it. What is it? No, Charlotte and Columbus are playing, I think, tonight.
No, that's Wednesday, but
we'll get into that. Yeah, we'll get into that in just a second.
But then it's Miami and Orlando have a double game week this week. They are both live, and they're playing each other in the midweek for that. So that is huge for playoff implications. FC Cincinnati currently sits at 5th, but that will be changing after the midweek game. If there's a draw, they drop to 7th because the draw puts everybody level on points, but Cincinnati's behind on the wins. If there's a win, they move to 6th. It's like there's a lot of moving parts here, so expect
everybody behind them's got a game in hand. So
yeah.
So we'll cover that.
Expect a lot of craziness this week.
Yeah, I think you guys are right. You nailed it. I mean, the takeaway is look at the standings, look at the rosters. You can check that out at the MLS standings and see who's in play, which teams have it to play for, and you can see who you need to bet against if you have those opportunities, because a lot of them are playing each other, which makes it exciting, and that's really good that it is exciting. And I just want to highlight one takeaway that was put in chat because I made a pun out of it, and I was proud of myself. Cameron said Philly with no Bedoya is an avoid, and I corrected him and said Philly with no Bedoya is an avoida. So
I do love that.
There we go. I did. I had to share it. But yeah, no, that's really what the end of every season comes down to, is just looking at those matches and lineups and who's playing for what, and it's important. It's just the way it is for the way this format is for our playoff system and everything. So and it can be weird. I mean, we saw what happened with Philly. It doesn't always come out like you would think or hope that it would, but yeah, that is the most important thing. But I did say when I teased tonight's episode on Twitter that Ashley had a very important update to make. If you've been watching the schedule on the fantasy game, you probably already know this, but if you haven't checked yet, there's going to be an update that we're going to cover right after our little break. Okay. Pretty short here. I'll let you holler that out,
Yeah.
Ashley, when we come back, since you did the legwork for that one.
Well, I was trying to be productive.
Hey, no, you're good.
I don't do it very often.
Put the rundown together. It was all good.
Classic Ashley.
Classic Ashley. Forgot to give us access to it. Oh, jeez.
That is classic Ashley.
There we go. Okay. Let's get the social out for housekeeping. All right. All right, and we're back with housekeeping for round 29. The quick update for those of you who don't know, I forgot to say at the top of the show, this is not our last episode. We will be coming back with one more episode for our season recap. We'll likely take a week off so that we can get everything together, get our guests lined out, and then we'll come back with that show. I guess the 17th, I think, is when that is. That's the target. If it does get delayed, I'll be putting stuff out on Twitter. We really want to make sure that Skylar can join us for this show to give us some feedback from the MLS point of view. So if we can't get him, that's probably the only reason we would have some kind of delay. But there will be one more podcast, one more live stream after this show tonight. So we are not signing off. Housekeeping, though, let's touch quickly on where the leagues stand, at least the head-to-heads right now. Donuts is the confirmed Supporter Shield winner of the MLS Fantasy Insider Experts Invitational, but he has not clinched everything yet. He is fighting it out with Cam in a massive head-to-head battle this week for the actual trophy right there. So we'll see who comes down to the MLS Fantasy Insider Experts Invitational winner. A brutal league if there ever was one. Heading over to the Pro Rel update, which I'm like super salty this week. I got the 100 points and it was 4 points. I said 4 or 6. It was 4 points was the most that I lost by. I lost one of my head-to-heads by 1. I drew another one, and everything else was like 100 to 104. So I was like, man, you're killing me here, game. But over in the Champions League, FC Star Fox, who jumped ahead a couple of rounds ago, 22-6 is his result. He is still on top, but there is still one round to go, and Donuts is right on his heels, so he could overturn and also take the Champions League as well this year. So it's pretty close. I think Patrick is now third out of the running, so it's coming down between FC Star Fox and Donuts. How are we looking in the Veterans League, Ashley?
It's over. I'll have to look it up because we didn't have playoffs. So
my bad. We'll fix that next year. My bad. Miscommunication.
No, you're
my bad.
fine. Both Blayne and I, Sloppy Steaks took that one home. Clear winner. Back and forth most of the season between Sloppy Steaks, Almeida's Vibes, and throwing in the cowl. Not that I have a favorite, but you guys know how I feel about puns. So Sloppy Steaks took that one home 21-7, with a 1 point cushion on the second and third spot. So yeah.
There you go. Blayne,
So
what was the result of Dev?
We do have playoffs over here. We've got a final that's set up to be McBean All-Stars, who took down the regular season title, versus Jordy for MVP, which is my buddy Maxime from the draft leagues. Feel bad for Rain City on this one. His 104 loss to a 119 actually would have won the other playoff game. So it sucks to have the second highest score and still lose, but we've got a final here from two heavyweights this year, and I'm excited to see this one play out.
Sorry, Ashley, you're head to head.
I know, yeah, I guess I
forgot about that too.
No, yeah, we didn't. My league didn't have one, and to everyone there, I apologize, and also I say blame Reid.
I forgot. This was our first year doing this stuff. It's all manual. We're trying to get the bugs worked out. Next year, there will be no head-to-heads. It will be just solid all the way through, and we'll get this straight out. But
sorry, everybody. I would have loved that because I just absolutely tanked in mine. I would have loved a redemption shot. I think I was like 14th in mine, yeah.
Then heading over to the Pro Rel waitlist, Wawa Weewa is the champion there, so no one else is going to catch him with that. So congrats right there, Pro Rel waitlist. As soon as we have spots open after I review everything, you all will be the first ones I go to before opening it back up through Patreon. That's likely. I mean, last year we just started with Patreon, then kind of filled open. The plan that I have right now is we'll see how everybody shifts around, confirm who is still interested, any open spots or non-responses by the deadline that I set. We'll go to the Pro Rel waitlist to see who wants to come in, and then if there are still any spots open first pick is going to go to our patrons, and then it's going to go to the public. So that's how we're going to do that, because we still want to have some incentives for the patrons. So that's what that is. Okay, moving on to the actual round. Now this is some important news. Like I said before, if you've seen the schedule, you may already know this, but Ashley, there is an update that everyone needs to know about this round.
Yeah, I hit up Skylar earlier this morning, Pacific time, so regular daytime for the rest of you East Coasters. Trying to get my team set before I went to work, and I saw that Columbus was listed as a double game week with Charlotte in the system. But when you added them to your team, they only showed as a single. Wanted to double check with Skylar, who knows everything. By the time he and I were done talking, they'd already fixed everything in the system. And the Charlotte Columbus game, and I hesitate to even re-bring that up because it's such a hot button issue, is basically just not going to count for the game. If you guys remember, they called that game in, I think, the 11th or 12th minute. So no one got points for those players. Skylar and the team decided to unlock them so we could adjust, I think, to Orlando, if I remember correctly. It was the only game left, Orlando versus someone. Mm-hmm. So that game is just a wash. So Columbus and Charlotte are not on a double game week this week. They will play on Wednesday, and that game will not count for fantasy points. Kind of like the San Jose game. The Cali Classico didn't count, in the international break. So that's what's happening with that game. So the only double this week is Orlando and Miami, the Florida teams. So if you're, kind of hot on some of those Columbus players thinking maybe they had a double, they do not. But they still need to make playoffs, so...
I had one quick question that just came in from JoJo, who asked about if there were some patrons who weren't able to make it in the head-to-head leagues. Yes, that did happen, JoJo, just because of the number of spots that were available. We'll also be considering the size of the leagues as well next season when we review everything. So Blayne, Ashley, and I will go over everything. We'll see what the numbers look like. But yes, the way it worked this season for the head-to-heads and the Pro Rel League is that I gave the first shot to the patrons by posting the link there for patrons only. And so if anyone didn't get the notification or didn't have their email updated or didn't go to the site to check, you could have missed out on being able to join the league. And there were caps on the league, and so if it was sort of a first come first serve there, and if one league filled up, I then posted the next league down for that group to be able to join. So if you weren't able to make it and you were a patron, so sorry, you still had the ability to join the patrons league, because I put the maximum number of players. It's 260 or something. So that head-to-head for the patrons exclusive was available, and of course the classic league for all the patrons. But yes, definitely possible if not able to join. So sorry if you couldn't, just due to logistics with the systems in the first year trying to figure it out. But thanks for that update, Ashley, about the game. I know that when we look at the standings, it's hey, they're playing for something, but it is not going to be something that you can capitalize on if you are trying to get some fantasy points. And you know what? It is what it is. Again, this is, as Blayne and Ashley have said, a very standard because MLS season right here with the weird game systems and some of the matches being crazy and just the teams kind of being unpredictable as usual right there as well. So it happens. We're all in the same boat. I know it may not feel fair, but we're all playing with the same rules whenever they happen to be explained to us. We are playing with them. So, but take those feelings, save them up. We'll push out a survey. Let us know your thoughts. We'll get that back to Skylar and the rest of the MLS team, and just see what we can make happen for next season. So that's going to be the plan. As for the rest of this round, the final round, all the fun starts, as we mentioned, on Wednesday, October 5th at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time with Miami versus Orlando. So that's going to be a big derby match down there. And then after that, Decision Day hits us on Sunday, October 9th. Half the games start at 2:30 p.m. and the other half of the games start at 5 o'clock p.m. So I'm not going to list out everybody. You can go and check on that, but pretty much half the teams are playing in the morning or the early afternoon, and half the teams are playing in the late afternoon. though I guess if you're over in Ashley's time, half the teams are playing in the early morning, or half the teams are playing in the late morning.
You're Ashley. She quit this weekend, so
she's just gonna TiVo it all and check and see what happens.
I'm actually on vacation, so I literally actually won't be paying attention.
Well, there we go. The perfect excuse. So as we said, double game week teams that you can actually take advantage of: Miami and Orlando. No teams are on a bye, which is not always the case on decision day. We have had some times when there's been a bye team. Switcheroo targets. Just check the mega reference. Again, this is going to be...
Come on, red. Pick a red dotted person.
I was going to say, you can check the mega reference, but with this being the last day, there will definitely be rotations. There will definitely be players who don't usually play getting some time. Check your rosters.
Don't have to worry about money.
Exactly.
I'm
just
going
check.
Kim Moon Hwan. That's my red dot. LAFC. He's definitely not playing.
There we go.
Guy.
There we go. Check all those things out. Check the mega reference over at Discord. And then I'm going to give... I'll let Blayne give this update real quick. But first, there's not a lot to update with about the injuries. We do ask that everyone's thoughts and prayers go out to Tyler, our good friend Ranch, because he just had a death in the family. His grandfather passed away. Not necessarily unexpected, maybe a little bit earlier than anticipated. And so his family is going through that process. So he was not expected to and told not to do anything with fantasy for as long as was necessary. So not many updates, and that's why, and I think that's understandable. Blayne, do you have anything to add to any of those things I just said?
No, I mean, I didn't have anything. I asked I asked Discord right before the show started to give us something, because I've been talking with Ranch off and on for the last couple of weeks, and this was faster than expected. So really just been a busy week and didn't expect anything from it. But we did get an update today. Pozuelo may miss the first game. He's a major doubt for the first game of this double game week, which is huge news because I think he was in everybody's initial draft before the news came out. And then just a few other names. Valencia for Colorado. What?
Sorry, I was going to say, I believe he actually said that they rushed him back this past week because he wanted to play in Toronto.
Yeah.
And he is, out, was the phrasing that I thought I read for midweek, that there's no way he's playing the midweek, but that they're hopeful he'll play the weekend.
Bogert had Phil Neville's actual comment, and it's major, major doubt.
Yeah, I mean, that's... yeah.
Yeah, he's not playing. But Valencia, Wagner for Philly, Pines, Santos in Cincinnati, and Hadaby for Houston are all out on red cards. Fuchs is still suspended for the midweek game, for the Columbus game.
So then he'll be back for the real.
So he'll be back, and Yearwood's out for the remainder of the year. And then the only other one I saw added was Waterman for Montreal, left a little bit early with an injury. So very short list. Thank you, Discord, for getting that. Watch the mega reference, get in Discord. There will be more, I'm sure, as time goes on. But the good news is with Decision Day, if you're watching lineups, you can see everything, and the East locks at one time and the West locks at a later time. Yeah. So you have room to make moves, and you'll have a really good picture of what the landscape looks like at roster lock time. So there should be no major surprises.
Yep.
Thank you so much, guys. If you want to check out where the mega reference is at to see if there are any other changes, which with just the way lineups are going to be in rotations, it may be hard to actually be sure what's going to happen. But you can head over to MLSFantasyBoss.com/Discord, and that's the easiest way to join our Discord community and check out the fantasy resources that we have, including the mega reference to see that. And like I said, normally Tyler does a lot of the heavy lifting for getting that worked up, but he does have that death in the family that he and his family are going through. So if you want to send him some good wishes, you can send him a message, Twitter, at Ranchinator on Twitter. If you just want to send him some good thoughts and prayers right there, I know that he and his family will appreciate that in this time. One of our own right there. All right, that was a little depressing, but I thought it was important to highlight it. But now we're going to move on to our player recommendations as best as we can for this final round 29. Yeah, that was rough when talking to Tyler about that, but
Yeah,
he did a lot of look. But yeah, everyone, if you do want to hit him up, you can hit him up on Discord, hit him up on Twitter. I'm sure he would appreciate that. I feel like they're in a good headspace, trying to just celebrate the life of his grandfather, and he's going to be doing some stuff with his family after that. So he may not see stuff immediately, but I think that would be great for when he comes back to be able to see all that love and support.
Ranch told me for chat, and I know this probably won't make it on the pod, which is okay, but he told me privately that his grandfather was in his 80s, pushing 90, and still out diving for footballs with his grandkids. So, I mean, the dude was up and doing stuff until the very end. And they've got nothing but good memories of him. So it's one of those, it's hard because he was such a big part of their lives as adults and out there playing with the kids all the time. And just, he went downhill really fast once he started to go downhill. So it's been rough. But Ranch was talking to me a little bit beforehand, and they're in a good spot. The family is really okay. It's hard.
All right, well, the social's out for this final segment, so if people would like to, you can share that as well. And we're going to wrap things up with some of the player picks that we have coming up. So, okay, let's see here. Quick drink. I guess podcast brought to you as usual by Dr. Pepper. All right. And we're back to talk about player picks for this final round 29. Let's start off, as always, with our keepers and defenders. Ashley, who do you like?
Yeah, so I think I thought the least so far about my defense and defenders, which is probably not helpful when it is my job to sit here and tell you who I like. But all I know is that when I looked at these matchups, not just because of the double, but heavily factoring in, I just put Gallese on my bench as a keeper. I don't know which single game week keeper I like. I don't get to see his second game, Orlando's second game, before making that decision. I can see half of a game and then pick a West Coast guy. But I'm thinking of going Gallese to a single game week keeper right now. I don't love both of their clean sheets shouts, although I think that it's possible. So right now in defense, to kind of piggyback on that, I do have Matinho. Like I said, the Orlando defense has been kind of shaky. I want someone who I think could get bonus points. And then I'm throwing in Miazga going to DC. Statistically probably favorable, even though it's at DC. And then I'm picking Callens back up after that goal this past weekend. Even though they didn't get a shutout, his bonus point production was good enough that I think maybe back from that injury now he's starting to get into some good form. And their matchup, at Atlanta, already knocked out of playoffs, makes me like him enough to keep him. And then this is definitely a homer pick, but I'm putting DeAndre Yedlin on my bench. He's been having some good service. He's definitely not the highest pointed or bonus pointed player in that Miami back line. There was a stretch of this season, I know a lot of people liked Damian Lowe a lot. And that they were having some pretty decent, defensive showings. They're not really there yet, but there's 2 games. I could see DeAndre getting an assist or something, maybe a shutout. So just as a bench play last week, he's a Seattle guy. I gotta spread the love, and there's no one else that really jumps out at me this week defensively. My instinct initially was to just turn to one of the other Philly defenders because Toronto's not scoring very well and they're at home. I think that that's a decent idea. I might end up turning my scrub into a Philly defender and seeing how it goes. But right now, those are the guys sitting in my roster.
Blayne.
Yeah, see, I'm on the other side of the double game week keeper. I like Calendar. It's a double home. Orlando and Montreal both put up a lot of shots. I don't necessarily see the clean sheets, but I see massive bonus point potential here. And it's double home, and both of those teams have been a little fluky that they're playing against. Miami could snag a clean sheet here randomly. I mean, Montreal's in the hunt for the top spot in the East, which is crazy to think. And then their offense is capable of putting up 3 or 4 goals or doing absolutely nothing. So I think it's worth a risk here for calendar, and then you go to a Western Conference team on the back end. I think your Western Conference number one is probably going to be Stuver as the chalky pick, hosting Colorado. I mean, that just makes sense with the way Colorado has been playing. But I'm actually looking at one of the playoff fights and going with McMath and RSL. I just like the way they're playing right now. Portland is so streaky, so hit or miss, and we haven't been able to rely on them. I really think McMath might have the best clean sheet chance out of the Western Conference altogether for a home team. Even then, the road teams have not. I see a lot of goals in the West on decision day. I do. I think. I don't think any team's really got a good chance at it, but I like McMath the best. So I'm leaning that way. So with that, I think the chalky picks that I threw in there first, I like Moutinho just like Ashley. I think he's the bonus point guy for a double game week team. I think you want that bonus point player, but I worry about Orlando rotation a lot. They have rotated their guys and they've got multiple guys at every position. So I do worry about that a little bit. And then Callens and Miazga are the other two that are just obvious to throw in. They get bonus points, they're goal threats, they do really well. But the other name that I'm looking at as possibly a bench play or just a different one, I really like Aaron Herrera for RSL this week. I think going into Portland, that's a good one. He gets some attacking bonus points. He gets involved a lot. I think Brody's the other side of that positional battle. Like he's on the other side of the defense. I think either one of those guys could really do some damage against Portland, and they are live this weekend, so it's everything to play for. It's one of those great matchups, and I could just see somebody from RSL putting up a monster score, getting in the attack a little bit, and making some magic happen for their team when they really need it. So it's kind of weighing the chalk versus going for something a little crazy and seeing if I could improve my overall standing at the end of the season with something just kind of outlandish and out there a little bit. But I don't necessarily trust going New York City on the road or taking two road defenders. I mean, looking at Miazga and Callens, that's two road defenders, and that's more than I ever really take.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you all are on the right path with lots of this. I'm kind of like you, Ashley. I'm looking at that Galese with a single game week, and I guess I'm merging both of you because I'm looking at Galese and McMath. I can see both of those Galese games, and I do like McMath, and I can have that pivot if I need to him with a keeperoo. So I think that's a good keeperoo. The only slight danger to it is, what does Portland come out doing, and with the good form and the quality that we know that McMath has? As I think it's safe to say that McMath is definitely we are a fan of his as a show. We've liked what he has done for fantasy or his fantasy value, but it's the final game and everything's on the line. So that's a lot of pressure there. But I think that's a smart move. I think we've targeted all the general players that we're going for. I mean, you could definitely go something crazy with loading up, especially with Paz being questionable. You might double up with that Miami back defense just to see if you can get lucky. If Lightning will strike twice, they're the double home game team this week. So you might give that a shot. I don't know, but I think we're looking at a lot of the right players. The other teams, it's just going to be such a crapshoot. I mean, you will likely find some team that is not having anything to play for and has some defense that comes out and gets a clean sheet, and it's just going to be such a crapshoot. Exactly. So it's going to be a crapshoot. I prefer to stick with some of these teams that are going to be more known quantities, even though there is that added pressure of where you're going to be with the playoffs. That's at least a bit more predictability of who's going to be out there and some play time. But going over to chat, doesn't look like we really have anybody else to add. McMath, Blake, Minsa Miazga. Also Waterman is Gene saying. I know there was a slight maybe injury.
Stepped out early or something, Blayne said, right?
Yeah. He came out early with an injury. Chat said it was nothing major.
I mean, I like him. He's on the road. Second game for Miami. Montreal's tough, so very valid. Probably on the bench.
I really struggle with the East because all the defenses I really want to pick from are road games.
Well, and Kyoto didn't start. I didn't see anything about that. I don't know if we had anything in our notes, but he didn't start. Wasn't even on the bench for Montreal this weekend. And if I'm looking it up, I'm trying to send time. Yeah, Montreal, I believe, has clinched a home bye. They've clinched second in the East. So, I'm interested to see what that makes their Saturday lineup look like. I could definitely see that being a team who rotates some.
Montreal is still live for that first seed though. That's a 2-point
You're
differential.
Right.
So
you're right. It's only looking below them.
So it gives you a bye.
It's one of those. They can't finish worse than second, so they may just say we're second. We're not going to risk injury to our guys, and we're going to go for it. Or they may say no, we can knock off Philly if Philly has a bad game.
Right. Yeah, they're not in charge of their own destiny in that situation, right?
Yeah.
So it does make me wonder. It's a good point.
Chat's got a good one. Brandon just threw it out there. Air Force One, Parada. BP Machine hosting New York City. I mean, and he's got goals in him.
Atlanta's a tough one for me. You guys know I'm very pro Atlanta. We have great friends of the show who are. This isn't a dig at Atlanta. Please don't come at me. They're hard to read this year. They're hard to predict. Already knocked out of playoffs, playing at home at the Benz. I'm inclined to think that they're going to go for it. Like, if I know Pineda like I know Pineda, I really do think that they'll come out with like a real lineup here and try to maybe play spoiler to Philly a little bit. But also, I don't know, will they?
I was going to save this for a little bit later, but we're possibly looking at Joseph's last game in Atlanta.
Yep.
And if he's playing in his last game in Atlanta, and his team knows it, and he starts,
yes,
everybody is going to be amped up on that team. It's not just him. Everybody that's playing with him, everybody that has played with him for multiple years is going to be amped up to send him off the best they can.
Yep.
Because if it's his last game, nobody is going to fault him for leaving at this point. It's a rough situation all around. The organization has not done well around him.
Nope.
The players are going to play for him to send him off the right way. If he starts, I mean, that's a huge thing that I'm looking at. I want to see where he's going to be, what's going to happen with this team. But yeah, Atlanta could come out firing on all cylinders and absolutely take it to whoever they would play. This week it just happens to be City. That really weighs into this. And William asked in chat, Lennon, I mean, we're talking about Parada, but Lennon's another one. Just if Joseph's going to have his last game in a good game, Lennon's going to want at least one of those assists.
Yeah, I mean, check the New York lineup and see what they field against them. I mean, that's what would make that tougher for Lennon.
Yeah, and New York City is locked in. Now that's in flux. I think they can finish. They're currently in third, but if the teams behind them pick up enough points, I think they can finish 5th or 6th, maybe even 7th. Like they could fall a ways down, and they could lose that home game pretty quick.
Yep. So yeah, a lot to be had. Just check the lineups and see, but you definitely have some good options this round that can have some varied defense to fit whatever style and risk you want to take. Let's move on now to midfielders. Blayne, who do you like?
I think you lock in Facundo Torres as a double game week player. You lock him in. Everybody should have him. It's too good of an option with Miami and Columbus. He's been playing really well. I know he's a rotation risk. If I see him not starting that first game, I'll probably drop him to the bench and out of the starting lineup. But he is definitely going to be in there because he has subbed in so many times this year and outscored Pereira as a sub-in player. So I can't envision a week in this with a single double game week or a single matchup in the double game week where I don't take the best midfielder in that double game week, assuming the news on Paz is that he is out for that first game.
Yep.
I mean, if Paz was playing both games, he's a lock in your lineup too, just to see what happens. But Facundo Torres is worth a bench play even if he doesn't start the first game. You have to take him this week. After that, it gets a little interesting. I do like Acosta on the road at DC. That's just good. I think Pooch had a little bit of an off game, but LA's going to Houston.
Penalty. Yeah.
Yeah, LA's going to Houston. Houston is not the greatest defense in the world. Mm-hmm. He's been playing really well. I expect that to continue. I actually struggled finding my midfielders in the absence of Paz because I don't see anybody I like. A lot of road games here. It's tough to figure out where the points are going to come from. I threw Zelarayan on the bench in my initial draft just because Columbus needs a win to really to make the playoffs. Like they have to do something, and one of the scariest things I've ever seen in MLS is Zelarayan hungry. When he needs to make something happen, he makes it happen. He will give you everything he's got. He plays with that attitude. Columbus needs a win, and they need some help. So it's going to be watching that midweek game. If that goes really south, Columbus may not be in that. But I just have to go with Columbus. They've got the midweek game too, that continuation from Charlotte. So we'll have to see where that goes. But it kind of depends on their standing. But I expect Zella to show up for that. And beyond that, another guy that's in the hunt, and I think he's really hitting his form right now, is Ryan Gauld in Vancouver. Mm-hmm. It's another road game, but he has been on fire lately. He has been making magic happen. They call him the Scottish Messi for a reason. In a do or die, trying to make the playoff scenario, I will go with him. I don't see how you can get away from him, knowing how much he has to play for, knowing there's no safety net there. Vancouver wins and they have a chance. Vancouver loses and they're out at this point. Like it's one of those. And he's got an 8, a 9, and a 17 in his last 3, and he has been on the score sheet in each of those games. I can't get away from him on this one, and I think you got to go with the team in the hunt right now, and that's Gauld in Vancouver.
Ashley.
Yeah, I have some overlap, with Blayne this week. Torres after pause before I knew he was out. Torres was the first in my team. I'm keeping an eye on New England for heel. I like the matchup, but New England is such a dumpster fire as far as expectations. I just don't know. The fact that he didn't even get to take that PK last weekend, I was like livid about that. I don't know who's taking a penalty kick off Carlos' heel, but no one I like. So I just don't know what to do with them. I still think he's heel, but. And Chicago's not keeping a ton of goals out anymore, but it was definitely not something I felt fully confident in. I like Ricky Puig. I think, like Blayne said, going to Houston is a good matchup for him. I am going to keep Mukhtar in my lineup. I think going to LAFC, I expect a lot of rotation from LAFC. I could be very off there. He didn't produce this week, but that doesn't mean he's not still Hani Mukhtar. Even with a road game, there's still some for them to play for. So I definitely think he's worth a shout. And then I also have Lucho Acosta versus DC. They need that win to make playoffs. I know they just got off a double, but I do like him this week. And then I don't feel the same about Zelarayan. Columbus's form has dipped. His form has dipped. They're playing 2 games, but we only get points for 1. So I just don't know that I like him on that last day on the road game. I definitely agree about Gauld, although he's not on the bubble for me. My 2 bubble players this week are Gazdag, who, yes, had a terrible performance this past week, but I'm interested in that matchup. What those lineups look like is kind of dependent to me. And then the other, outlier player, and it kills me to even say it, is Sebastian Blanco. Portland is an emotional team. They're a team that, until this loss against LAFC was in a good run of form. I think they still are, honestly, in a good run of form. Cervese benched him, Blanco, for that game. I'm not sure why. My assumption was rest. But maybe there's an injury there. Both Yumichar and Blanco rested. But if there's a guy on a team who needs the win for playoffs that I like more than Blanco, I'm not sure. You know, his point production hasn't been incredibly consistent, but neither is RSL's defense. So I feel like I'm spouting out a lot of road names this week, but those are just the players that I think could have the most impact on their games. So while I don't often get behind the Portland or the Blanco of it all, I think that he might be kind of a sneaky bench pick this week if you're going to bench Mitty, which I don't often do. I also considered, I don't know if you did this too, Blayne, I just looked, okay, what does the rest of Miami's midfield look like? Who are other players that play for them? Bryce Duke has gotten some consistent points. Not going to put him in my team. He's not a consistent starting player, but he's definitely popped once or twice. And then Gregor is the only other one who seems to pick up some consistent points. But I'm assuming there'll be a bit of a change in formation without Pozuelo. And I just don't know any of those players. None of them have done enough for me to think, oh, 2 home games, I'll pick blank up. And I'll touch on who I do like from Inter Miami as we move into forwards. But there was just no one else from that team that really stood out to me. I think you could do a bold Pereira-Torres combo or one of the other, Orlando midfielders. But I don't know. I just don't love their matchups enough to go for that. For me, Torres is enough. It's really hard for me to not max out on double game week players, even when it's just 2 teams. But I just can't justify, some of the additional players from Miami or Orlando. So for me, I'm just sticking with Torres in the midfield, and then I have some Inter Miami love as we go the line. But
with Reid stepping away for a minute, I want to kind of go down this rabbit hole because we have time and we don't have anybody telling us we can't.
No one's here to tell us not.
I'm with you. I always try to take maximum double game week players, and it burned me last week getting off the Seattle guys because Fry and Yamar would have been fantastic for my final score. So I'm looking for ways to get 6 double game week players in my team, and I just can't justify it. Not on decision day, not when Paz is out. I get it. Okay, I've got Zella on my bench, as I pointed out. I think a hungry Columbus, do or die, playoff time is a big deal. But that Zella spot could easily be Pereira, which I am over Pereira. I had him in draft. I had both Torres and Pereira in draft. So it was interesting to watch that one play out. But I could see Zella becoming a double game week bench midfielder that I just want to see both scores and see what happens.
Zella doesn't get 2 scores, though.
No. I'm just saying I could see a double game week midfielder in place of Zella.
Yes,
this week.
Got it.
That's a 50-50 trade-off for me. Do I take Zella single when he's hungry, or do I take a double game week guy who's hopeful, or do I instead go with Driussi, who I did not have in my draft? That's a good matchup. That's a guy that's in the hunt for the Golden Boot.
Yep.
If there's going to be any
defense, and we've said Driussi at home, he's goal dependent, but he's goal producing, right? That's my
and if I'm looking at a bench play Otteru, right. If I'm looking at a first scrub starter, I mean Driussi, if I put him in my lineup, he's my first starter to scrub out.
Sure.
At that point, because he is so goal dependent, they are pretty much locked into their standing. It's there's all these things weighing. I want to take more double game week players. I just can't find single game week guys to drop in order to grab bonus
especially in
points.
The midfield. I like what Reid said maybe about getting crazy and throwing a double Miami defender maybe because they're on a double and a double home, I mean. But yeah, in the midfield, there's not a double up for me. There's not an Inter Miami midfielder I like with Pozuelo out. I think people can have their preferences, and I could see with what Pereira can still contribute. Maybe leaning towards him, but yeah, I agree about Torres. I think he stood out more from a fantasy perspective. They do occasionally kind of have that group feast mentality where Junior Urso gets on the board or their Araujo gets on the board, but not enough so that I feel the need to pick both, right? Or to pick more than one. So
yeah, and
for me, I think you pick one and you roll with it as far as the midfield's concerned.
I don't know that I can take any of those guys over. I mean, we haven't talked about him. I talked about Gall. Salt Lake doesn't really have anybody, but we haven't even mentioned Reynoso here.
Yeah.
But
he
this
didn't
is
produced for me last week. That's what I think kind of tore it.
Yeah, but you've got Blanco in there.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we have Blanco, Reynoso, and Gall on a win and they're in. Like, I was just reviewing this.
Yeah.
It's if RSL beats Portland, they are in the playoffs. They leapfrog Portland. Like, that's it.
Yeah.
If Vancouver beats Minnesota, they leapfrog Minnesota. They are in the playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
Minnesota's in with a draw. Portland is in with a draw. Like, we have this, like, okay, Portland only needs a draw. That you keep that in the back of your mind because that's a big deal in how you line these teams up.
Mm-hmm.
You say they rested their guys against LAFC. Well, LAFC was in the Shield hunt, and they locked it up.
Yeah.
Like, okay, you've got a hungry LAFC that can lock up the Shield and have an off week if they want it. Okay, coach goes, let's just rest our guys. Doesn't matter if we lose this game. We still control our destiny, and a draw puts us in for the most part. A win and we're in. Let's save our guys, get them 100%, and let's go at it in this last game. And RSL is a very winnable game for Portland.
Sure.
It is. So, but we've got 3 top midfielders that we have liked throughout the season and through their time in MLS, playing a win in their end game.
Yeah. I definitely think it's worth looking at. I think, the fact that they start a little later shouldn't factor in. I think we've kind of already said this, and I think the midfield picks really drive it home, which is that pay attention to lineups this week. Know those storylines like Blayne's saying. Know who needs the win. Know who's already out. Just really, really get those rosters looked at and be prepared to kind of make some changes, right, based on what teams roll out and what about what those games matter to those teams. Just for Reid's sake, let's go ahead and
well, I was gonna address 2 things from chat and then we'll move on to forwards. We've got a question. Driussi and Mukhtar, are they still in the battle for the Golden Boot? Mukhtar has a 2-goal lead in that. That's where we're at. Both of them have their playoff spots.
Mukhtar's on the road against LAFC, decent defensively, but might rotate. And then Driussi's at home against, not the best Colorado defense, already eliminated. So,
I mean, and this is a case for Mukhtar. Cam actually said in chat, LAFC has said they're not going to rotate because they've got such a long layoff.
Say that, right?
Yeah. Well, they've got such a long layoff that they don't want the rust to come in.
Sure.
But still, Mukhtar, I mean, realistically, Mukhtar needs 1 to lock it in. I don't know quite what the tiebreakers look like there.
I think.
But I mean, if he gets 1, it would take a hat trick and tiebreakers for Driussi to beat him. Like he's gonna want his 1.
Sure.
And there's not really too much potential to leapfrog for a home playoff match. Like it's kind of crazy, but you may see Mukhtar rest. Honestly, I just don't know what's going to happen on this one. But yes, that one is going, and then
no, that's not true. If Nashville win,
they could leapfrog LA.
They can
if LA loses or whatever.
Ties,
yeah.
Just
tie puts them at I mean, there's a little bit.
Points. If Galaxy drop points, Nashville can jump them. So get a home stretch. So I mean I think
the other question
expect Mukhtar to be up. Go ahead.
Yeah, the other question we had was, what do we think of Chicago? Like,
I don't think anything of Chicago going into this weekend. I mean, a general question of what I think of Chicago is different. I think of Chicago the same I think of New England Revolution, which is I don't know what to think about them the last 4 to 6 weeks. So they're a team that's inconsistent, and they go up and down in quality. They go up and down in who's quality. So, yeah, that might be a game that I don't even end up touching, because they're both so consistently inconsistent. The only person that continues to stay who they are is Carlos Heel. So, I'm not picking Chicago this week. I don't think, because no one is consistent for them.
Yeah, I mean, if you like what you saw from Gutierrez last week on a monster score, Duran's been good, but I think he's listed as forward.
He is a forward. Sorry.
Yeah, he is a forward. But I mean, you got Shaqiri and Gutierrez, and maybe Muller if you want him. I think you have to wait for the New England Revolution lineup for that one. If they heavily rotate, if Arena says we're out of the playoffs, we're going to rest our big names, we're going to see what we've got depth-wise, and get ready for next year. It's an away game. It's not like it's a big send-off for any of their players that wouldn't be returning. If you see a heavily rotated New England side, maybe I start looking at one of these Chicago mids as a bench play.
Sure.
Because, just to be honest, I mean, chat brought it up. It's a good question to ask.
Yeah.
Because Chicago's puts up some sneaky impressive scores every once in a while from one of their midfielders.
Correct.
Shaqiri goes off. Gutierrez goes off like he did last week. Mueller goes off. Like, it's just, if they get the points, great. Like, be willing to throw one on your bench if you see things go south everywhere else.
Yeah,
like, if Zella's not in, if the lineups look bad, if the midweek game goes horrible, yeah, sure, that could easily become a Chicago spot for me if the lineups look right.
Yeah, I'm not touching anyone from that game except for maybe Heel. I don't have enough faith in what Chicago has done, is doing. Like I said, both those teams are very inconsistent, and that's something that I try to avoid, especially on the last week of fantasy. So
yeah.
We kind of waited for you, but not on purpose.
Okay, so forwards?
Mm-hmm.
Forwards. Blayne.
Higuain on the bench. He's retiring. Miami's got a double. Like, as much as I love Campagna and would love to see him start, he was so hot. Higuain's been starting lately. It's a swan song for him. Let's see if put up a few goals. I mean, if he's going to have 4 goals in a week, this is the week to do it. Because he's never playing again. Like, I will put a guy like that on the bench. Because he could go out with one of the greatest double game weeks in MLS history. And I think he knows that.
Smoking a cigarette.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, I would love it if he gets a hat trick in his final game against Montreal and smoking a cigarette in his post game.
That's fine. Whatever. From your lips to his ears.
Yeah, let's do it. Let's just make it happen and go out big. Other than that, I'm looking at some different guys. I'm kind of waiting on that midweek from Columbus, but if they're still in the hunt, I like Cucho. A hungry Columbus team is something I'm not willing to sleep on. Porter is a coach that gets his guys amped up for these games. His teams always show up in do or die situations and give a good fight. They may not win, but they always give a good fight. So if Columbus is live and fighting for their playoff spot, I expect Cucho to be on form. Same with Zella. So I'm leaning that way. And then there's Ferreira from Dallas. I just have that feeling. I know it's against Sporting. Sporting's been playing much better lately. Dallas doesn't really have anything to play for.
He does, though. He's trying to make a World Cup roster. So
yeah. Yeah, it's just I have that feeling about Ferreira, but part of me just wants to homer it out and take Agata, who has been absolutely spectacular. And part of me just is saying, throw it all up against the wall. I'm going to take Zardes just because.
You've been taking him all year. I feel like actually... No,
I have taken him a couple of times.
Okay.
Yeah. No, I have. It's just I feel like kind of going Homer. I don't dislike that matchup with the way Austin's defense has been playing.
Dallas.
I feel like
Zardes. You're talking Zardes. Sorry.
Zardes. Yeah, the way Austin's defense has been playing, they can't improve. They can't hurt their standings. This could be the feed Driussi game, trying to give him the golden boot and they give everything to him because they can't finish worse than second, and they can't finish first. So what if they their whole game plan is feed Driussi, try to get him the golden boot because they can, and that opens them up to the whatever counterattack Colorado has.
Yeah.
And Zardes, to me, is kind of playing for his contract. He got ousted in Columbus, picked up by the only team that would really have him at the price, that was desperate for any type of goals they could get. Like, Zardes is playing for a contract, whether it's in Colorado, whether it's a new team. I don't even know if he's out of contract this year. It's like one of my favorite players. I don't even know the situation.
2-year, but I could be wrong.
But I think it's a contract year for him. But even if it's not, I mean, he's got trade value for Colorado. There's just so much there. He's playing for a contract as far as I'm concerned. And guys in that situation in the final week, that's why we always say watch out for the kids when they play. Anybody playing for a contract is somebody to watch out for. Sure. And I think he's just in that situation. I may just have fun with the forward position because nobody's, other than Higuain, nobody's really standing out to me this week.
Okay.
Ashley, who do you like?
I'm starting Higuain. That's not a bench spot for me. I know he announced his retirement, and I expect there to be, some implications of that in these two games, but I legitimately might captain him. I'm definitely starting Higuain. I certainly hope he scores a hat trick and walks off with a cigarette. That's just my number one dream. I'll just keep saying it and try to will it into existence. Then I'm going with Brenner at DC. I think that favors him. I honestly think you could talk Vasquez. I just think Brenner's form is a little bit better. But Vasquez's big, number 9 frame, I think might do well if DC comes out in the 3-back. Which they've been going back and forth with this season. I don't know how much Rooney's been doing it. Another team that just has nothing to play for, playing against a team that has everything to play for. So that's an interesting matchup for me. With nothing to play for, I could see Wayne Rooney trotting out some kids. He was never going to turn the team around this season, so they might, let him do that. We'll see. And then my third striker spot, I want to bet against Atlanta, which might be, not Atlanta. I want to bet against Toronto because they don't particularly travel well and haven't been playing spectacularly. So my instinct was to pick a Philly player. I think they're really going to want to right that 4-0 in conference loss. And so Carranza was someone I thought of, or Uri. But since we've been talking, and I know this wasn't the intention of the conversation, I might do Josef as my bench striker if he's starting. I see him not starting, and that the team isn't appreciating Josef's storyline continuing. I could be wrong, but he's been fit enough and able to start for so many weeks now, and still not, that it would surprise me from a Pineda/front office perspective to see him start, even with all the rumblings. But if he is, those fans have never done him dirty, but the team has. I don't know. It's something that I'm just kind of entertaining. The way my team is currently lined up, I have a striker on the bench, and that's kind of a spot that, I'm kind of toying with. I like what Blayne said about Jesus Ferreira. I think that's a great shout. Just to kind of really dig into Blayne's wardrobe choice today, Vela has been the most consistent scorer for LAFC in their last 4 or 5 runs of games, I think it said. I don't know that I'll pick him up because, again, situationally. But I think that would be a decent shout at home if they're not rotating, which I kind of don't believe. If they're not rotating, I think he would be an interesting one, but I also think he's the first one subbed out because the new DP and Arango are definitely in health. But Vela is the one who, a couple of seasons in a row has been banged up going into playoffs. So, for me right now, it's a hard lock on Higuain, a hard lock on Brenner, though I could hear Vasquez, and then that third spot, I'm going back and forth, but I really want it to be Josef for the story.
Ashley, your Higuain walking off smoking a cigarette dream. I've got one similar, and that's a Josef hat trick and
one
not
last
coming
ride
back to Atlanta.
I mean, how
Like,
many times have we seen a Joseph Patrick
if,
in that
if
stadium?
he walks out of Atlanta on a hat trick,
Yeah.
I mean, that would be the ultimate FU to the organization.
Drinking yerba mate?
Doesn't matter.
Who knows? Who knows? I agree with you with Higuain. I also have Brenner seated in the spot right now. And I don't know if I may just rock those two and go with the 5 midfield and 2 forwards and just see. I mean, I get all the other arguments. I think we've touched on all the players that are like on the short list for there. Anybody else just becomes a long shot. I don't think there's anybody else from Orlando that you really want to slot in that spot there. And Columbus, I don't know. I just feel like I just can't pick Columbus because I want them to not make
don't do
it.
it.
Yeah, I want them to not make it. Like I want Orlando, Miami to make it, and I want them to miss out. It would just be so good.
Does that mean you need
to
take Columbus? Give them that badge.
No, I understand. No, I've thought that, but I just can't do it. Like I don't. I'm like, no. I'm just gonna be like, no. You don't get it. You don't get it. It's 3 Cincinnati guys, and that's who gets to help end the season for me. So because I've rarely picked him most of the year, so it's like, no, I want to like end it with 3 guys in my lineup and like go. Let's go all out. All right. Well, I think that sums it all up. And I think that's all that we have for the show tonight. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. Again, not our last episode, but it is our last player recommendations episode. We'll be back with one more final show in a couple of weeks, ideally. Updates on Twitter for that with our season recap. There'll be a survey that goes out for you to provide feedback about your thoughts of this season so far, recommendations. I mean, spoiler for me at this point, I've been pretty pleased with beyond some of the random things that happened that I feel like we're kind of beyond the control. System-wise, I'm in a pretty good spot, but I'm really interested in seeing and reading what other people think about the state of the game right now and your thoughts on how it can improve. So always interested in that, and we will, as always, pass it on to MLS. So we're not finished for this season. We will definitely be having one more podcast, so stay tuned for that. But let's wrap some things up with plugs. Blayne.
Well, Eric just pointed out we forget captain, so we'll just do captains and plugs
that's
together.
what we meant. We're there. So sorry.
Here's how this works. Watch. Magic. All right, last thing. Captains, Ashley.
Yeah, I am honestly considering Gonzalo Higuain for the retirement. He's on a double. I don't think it's the worst. If not, I think I'm probably going to put it on Torres for Orlando.
Blayne.
Yeah, if Torres starts that first game, he's been a rotation risk lately. If he starts that first game, I think it's on him because I've been taking midfielders. But part of me wants just to go back to my roots and captain a forward, and Higuain's the guy there. So it's one of those two, depending on who starts.
I think you're right. It's got to be a player who starts both double game weeks. So either of those are good shouts. Okay, well let's get things wrapped up. Edit. Okay, and let's go with plugs. Blayne.
Just the community. This has been such a fun year with the community and everything, and it's one of those that help you through so many tough times. And I know Ranch is having the tough time. Thoughts and prayers to him. Send him a kind word. It's been a rough week for him, but that's what this community does. I know I had problems early on with Lily and NICU, and there were so many positive vibes coming from the community as a whole. And it's what it is. Tough times are where the community really comes together, even through COVID. And so it's just, I can't not plug this group because they've helped everybody out through so many rough situations in their personal life and in this world that it's just, if you're not part of it and you're still listening to the show, go be part of that community. There's too many good people there that are really trying to help everybody get through whatever life throws at them.
Ashley.
My plug is Sally Yates. If you know it, and if you don't, you should look it up.
All right. Well, I'm going to plug the Discord as well. Fantastic community. Been a great group as always again this year. If you've not already checked that out. It's active over the off season. It's active during World Cup. It's active. They've got fantasy football guys there for hand eggs. So go check that out. MLS Fantasy Boss /Discord, the easiest way to check out that community. And we'll say it again in a couple of weeks, but officially with this group, thank you so much to Blayne and Ashley for being with us this year. Ashley's first year with the show. I hope it's been as fun for her as it has been for us to have her. And so we're not finished yet. We are coming back with one more episode. So as always, not for the last time yet. Good luck.
It's my second year. It's fine.
What?
Fine.
What? We're ending
Last
this show.
year was my curse of the co-host. It was like my shittiest fantasy season of my whole life.
Yeah.
And it was because it was my first year as a co-host.
What?
Yeah, that Ashley, great plug.